Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, on a Monday, and we got so much craziness happening in the NFL as we get closer to the playoff discussions here in the next couple of weeks. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show. Wherever and however you may be watching or listening, thanks for making this part of your day. Few minutes from now, former NFL offensive lineman Steve Edwards is going to be joining us, talking Chicago Bears and talking so much more about the importances of the offensive lines in the league, and especially with how playoff implications are happening in the NFL. So lots to discuss, and I know a lot of people right now are jumping for joy. Some are kind of feeling a little bit depressed. And listen, I'm here to be there with all of you for all of that. So first off, I want to start with this. I feel for what everyone in Kansas City right now is feeling with just obviously with what's happening with the Kansas City Chiefs. They have been eliminated from the playoffs, and Patrick Mahomes now is out for the season. I don't wish that kind of injury on anybody ever. And it sucks the way that we thought would have started and would have begun or would have ended. And, it's hard. And the NFL gives us surprises all the time. Like you don't realize the longer the season carries on, the more susceptible some of these players are going to be. And that's what I think is harder to understand. And one of the biggest things is in Kansas City, you've gone through a lot of these reigns, okay? You had 9 years of dominance. It hasn't come close to the 20 years of New England and Tom Brady, and we all know that. But Kansas City has had a lot of happy successes through that. And it is hard when your star quarterback goes down the way that he did because the offensive line is not the same. The entirety of the team felt different than normal. And we get that a lot. And we understand what the feeling and what that may be to some. But the fact of the matter is that competition is always going to come at some point. Remember, New England, the reason their dominance was so good was because they had dysfunction everywhere else outside of them. Miami, they've been fighting to get a head coach and quarterback for a long time. Buffalo, they were so wonky, had a couple of other players until Josh Allen arrived. And then there's the New York Jets, who we all know, Jets, just end the season. That's usually what it happens sometimes. But New England, with Brady and with Belichick, mostly with Brady, it felt a lot like a breath of fresh air. But for Kansas City, here's the thing. Kansas City was taking advantage of the situations around them. The Raiders are the Raiders. The Chargers were trying to find the coach ever since Norv Turner, and they never figured that out. And then the Broncos, they've had their reign a little bit with Peyton Manning. And then by the time he retires, they're trying to find a coach and quarterback. So there's all sorts of factors that you can believe in the NFL, and this is why it always stands for not for long for many of these teams. And it's a fact because a lot of these players oftentimes don't look like themselves. They don't play like themselves. And sometimes it's harder to wrap your brains around if this lasts for a very long time. So I'm on the sides of, I think Kansas City for the longest time were, in my opinion, felt spoiled because Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. He's a great quarterback. And we know whatever he does and however he leads is exactly how Kansas City is going to feel, how they're going to play. And then look at everyone else. Travis Kelce, Chris Jones. At one point, you had a hot minute with Tyreek Hill. You had a really good run game. You had a great offensive line. But the top tier dollar we know is how much we value Patrick Mahomes the most. But we know that lots of implications, lots of repercussions can happen. Offensive lines don't look and play the same. Defensively, you might end up losing some guys here and there. Now, they got a young wide receiving core, which is not the problem, but they can't run the football. It's hard for them to run it. Isaiah Pacheco could be injury prone. There are lots of factors to that. And I felt like in that game against the Chargers, and the Chargers for the first time swept the Chiefs since 2013. It's been a long time coming. Everybody, every player, everybody all knew what was going to happen up from there. But at this point today, yes, Kansas City looks and feels depressed. But look, you've had a reign of dominance for 9 years. Be proud and happy of that. Because we know when you're drafting at the bottom, it is not that easy. To be drafting at the bottom, getting top players from the draft is really extremely hard. But it takes a certain kind of GM to be able to handle that, and a certain kind of franchise. So I think the Chiefs, their dynasty, I would agree, is over, but that doesn't mean that they don't make the playoffs. That doesn't mean that they don't, get to the championships. They'll get to a Super Bowl. They're capable of that. It's different because competition eventually catches up with you. Think about it. Look at Urban Meyer's reign at Ohio State until Jim Harbaugh came in. Michigan became interesting. Think about, Nick Saban and in the SEC. The minute that Kirby Smart is in Georgia, the SEC is not the same. So it's a whole landscape of the whole thing. So again, I'm happy with what Kansas City's been able to do and their dominance. But these things happen all the time. They happen. And again, it's sad, but that's what happens when the clock turns. Another brutal injury, of course. So the Denver Broncos, they beat the Green Bay Packers. And right now the Packers are dealing with Micah Parsons out for the entirety of the season with a torn ACL. And that sucks because now how are you going to now start getting up and into pressures? Every time we get into the NFL, the biggest thing is we look at months of momentum when it comes to winning streaks and when it comes to the health and stability of your roster. And then a lot of it is your coach play. So Green Bay, I'll get to them in a bit. But Denver, listen, I've had a lot of people pretty much comment. I've had people messaging me. I live here in Denver, and they think I'm scolding Denver. I am scolding the players. I'm a Bo Nix hater. I've never said Bo Nix is not a franchise quarterback. I have never said that. Bo Nix is a franchise quarterback, and he is capable of leading the Broncos to wherever Sean Payton leads them. Okay, he is their quarterback. And I felt like yesterday, that was, again, another top-tier defensive front that they faced again this season. And Bo Nix, 23 of 34, 302 passing yards, and 4 touchdowns. And I think Bo Nix is growing in this aspect. Okay? I'm not over here scolding. I'm telling it as what it is. He's growing in the aspects that still somewhat give me concerns because I've watched this happen to multiple teams all the time. I've watched this happen to the Baltimore Ravens when in 2019, Lamar Jackson won his MVP. They were dominating. They were the number 1 seed. And then all of a sudden they caved down because Tennessee played physical and Derrick Henry. These things can happen in the NFL. And I love with what Denver's defense has been able to do. Takeaways, sacks, pressures, you name it. And a lot of it is, I think offensively, the best thing that you can take away from this is that Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton are clicking at the right time. So that's the best part. And so I think one of the big things is that Denver knows they're going to have to come across the adversity because you've got a couple of weeks left before you got to end up playing the Chargers in your last game of the season. And depending on if they get number 1 seed and then they win the division, that's your fight right now because Herbert's banged up, but yet is fighting enough to where he could get game-winning drives, get them into positions, and win football games. At this point, terrible offensive line is out of his mind. Now, all it is go and win the football games. That is what it is about. And for Bo Nix, you've got a great coach. You got a great system. You can understand exactly to where Sean Payton has a lot of trust in him. And I think for Denver, they're in a very good spot. And defensively, they could get takeaways. They could get picks. And I think Denver can be a pain in the neck to a lot of teams in the AFC. But remember, you've got Jacksonville's, you've got Houston's, you've got other teams that are also cooking as well. So you got to be careful with that. And that's the takeaway up from there. I'm not here trying to shoulder. I am not here trying to instill pressures and be a hater. I am just trying to speak it for what it is as America's honesty mind that cannot lie to my audience. Okay? That's the biggest thing is I love with what they've done. But these are always crucial positions in which the NFL, it gets harder, it gets tougher, and the competition is never, ever, ever going to be that simple. Never that simple. All right, good stuff. Steve Edwards around the corner, guys. I'm excited about this because Chicago, man, this has been an exciting year for Chicago's. I mean, it really has. And again, I myself, if I ever find myself up in Chicago, I'm celebrating with a deep dish pizza. Y'all deserve it, for real. It's been a long time. We're going to be talking a lot about that and introducing our guest as well. All righty, folks. Well, the holidays are so joyful and so cheerful that, you know, the best gift that we could give you in this holiday season, and especially preparing for the new year of 2026, Payday Fantasy has been one of our best partners as well when it comes to your daily pick'em fantasy sports app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. All you got to do is check out Payday Fantasy. You go on, download the app, and few things to keep in mind. Number one is you sign up, you get free $5 entry, free $5 on us for checking out the app, and just happy for y'all to sign up. Then also, when you deposit more, the more you enjoy it. 100% deposit match, a bonus of up to $100 just by using your gift present this holiday season is the promo code SNAKE. That's promo code SNAKE. My gift to you this holiday season from our family to yours. Check out Payday Fantasy for yourself. Sign up, pick the player, pick the outcome, sit back and relax, and get paid with Payday Fantasy.
Takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Oh, the NFL continues to just scorch and continues to be on fire. And so is, of course, our next guest, who is representing for them Chicago Bears, who are on fire. And listen, it was a great performance against Cleveland. And I know we've had a lot of evaluations with Shedeur Sanders and so much more. So to talk about the red hot scorching Chicago Bears, because they got an important date once again with the Green Bay Packers, Steve Edwards joins us here on the program. Well, y'all got a good one this up and coming week, man, with Green Bay on the score. Like there's a score to be settled here, but I do want to say this. I have loved with the entire culture shift that the Chicago Bears and what Ben Johnson has been able to do. Now, again, I think this season has been interesting because just earlier on, I had David Pindell talking about quarterbacking, and I love that I shift from quarterback to the O-line. Because that's the one thing is you got to protect your quarterback at all costs. And then, of course, your offense as a whole. So when you think about this, Ben Johnson came in with the plan that we need to change this culture. And the way we're going to do it, we got to beef up the O-line. We got to get a dual running back set that is ferocious to run the football. You got to pin your ears back and get ready to start playing some physical football. Then it's get the takeaways and get the rushes, get the sacks. When you think about this culture shift, Steve, this has to make every Chicagoan out there just loving it and for the ride. Like what is this feeling has been? Because it's been a long time coming for a lot of Bears fans.
Yeah, I think when you think about this culture change, we've seen those moments, when Nagy came in 2018, you'll get that magical year. You go back to some of, the most consistent years were back in Lovey during my time where you saw some consistency, but it's always these one-offs, with the Chicago Bears and then we'll go into a rut of just mediocrity. And this, even though we haven't seen more, this is the first year, it just feels different because it's sustainable, because it's a culture and it's a offensive guy and it's a developer, not only just, what he does offensively and scheming guys up, the development he's doing with Caleb Williams, and he's got him heading in the right direction. But it's just the attitude he brings with it, the whole team, they're believing, because we're deficient. We're not a complete team. We don't have a really good pass rush, but he has this team believing each and every week that we can win. And the fan base, I think, it's taking the fan base because we've been burnt so much. I think it's taking them a little, they're enjoying the ride, but it's like, is this for real? But I think each and every week we go through this, it's for real. And I think even though it was Cleveland Browns and we should have beat them like we did in the past, that would be a game that would maybe we would squeak out or we would lose. And we came out there and handled business. And it was just another proving point that this team is different and we're heading in a different direction. And it is actually absolutely on fire here in Chicago.
I think about this because, talking about offensive line plays, we'll get into a couple of games up from in here and how important that it is. And especially from your experience and perspective itself. I mean, coming into this, they signed Joe Thuney, they get Jonah Jackson, and then they get Drew Dahlman from Atlanta. And then all of a sudden, they are the most pass protective offensive line in the league. And then on top of all of that, Caleb has been getting the ball. He's been getting rid of the ball a lot quicker than what we saw last year. And then the other thing is he's been the least sacked quarterback in the league, which is crazy because you would think that you're coming against defensive fronts, even for a lot of, division rivals in the division in the NFC North. But for that, I feel like there's a chemistry in there from quarterback and offensive line, and even with the coach, that there's a belief in there. I think Caleb also trusts he's got a great blanket that when you have that, Caleb's going to do wondrous things. Like, is that the biggest benefactor that can happen for as an offense, that's a man's best friend from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that O-line took a little bit of time to gel. Early on, it was some difficulties, learning Caleb and his escapability, where he's going to be. But this group has molded into one of the better offensive line groups. And then you throw Ozzie Trapillo, who was thrown in there because Theo Benedict got hurt and he stepped in, and that's your second round draft pick, who a lot of people wrote off because it didn't look good in training camp. And he kept working it, and you throw him in there. Now he possibly might be a left tackle of the future, and that's something you might not have to worry about in upcoming draft, that you got maybe your left tackle of the future. And then you just couple that with Caleb's, them solidifying and being a good pass pro team, with Caleb's escapability. Some of the things he's escaping is masterful. And as the offensive lineman, you're going to give up pressure. This is the NFL. Everybody's good. So when you get beat, you just like, my guy's about to make a sack. You got that gut feeling, and then here's Caleb spinning out, getting away, scrambling. So that combination with a good pass pro team, where the quarterback has the escapabilities of Caleb, it makes for big moments, big plays. And one thing that Caleb's been a little inconsistent is when he does escape, when he should run or when he should throw the ball, and he's been late, and some of the receivers have a little troubles with his, with the scramble drill. But all that's starting to come together in the last 2 or 3 games. And when that starts really getting there, this is a really dangerous team, and it's really fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. And, it's interesting because we think about, the growth of Caleb Williams. Like initially, it didn't look as pretty. And I think initially what that is because Ben Johnson and Caleb, they're trying to build up that healthy relationship.
Yes.
In my opinion, I think, Caleb is so wildly talented. Like, he's got a great fastball. The question is, can he control the fastball with a little bit of some of those simple dinks and dunks here and there, get some consistency, and stick to the on-script stuff? So I feel like because of progress by progressions, I think that's the part in which you're starting to see the best version of Caleb. And I started the year where I thought the jumps were going to be J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix for respective reasons, but I have loved the growth out of Caleb Williams. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I know some people look at that passing percentage, and I'm one to kind of look past that. I'm looking at, obviously being a former player and being an offensive lineman. When I watch a game, I'm watching it right up the middle, and looking at the very nuances of what a quarterback brings. And Caleb, and it started maybe about 5-6 weeks ago. But at the beginning of the season, we couldn't do good at the pre-snaps. Penalties were killing us, and it's a little bit of that still around, but that stuff started getting cleaned up. I think that was Caleb getting in and out of the huddle, getting the verbiage out of there, inside the huddle, and getting up to the line of scrimmage. And then one thing was key, and I mentioned on my show, was that Caleb started moving receivers around. It's that thing where you'll see a Tom Brady be like, hey, what are you doing over here? Where you lined up wrong? Get over here. And I started seeing that, and I was like, okay, this guy started to understand what's going on. I think that, he's gonna be like that throw he made yesterday to DJ Moore. Total, like, I mean, everybody's like, no, touchdown, because he has that ability. But I know one thing about Caleb, he goes for the big game hunting, and that's one thing we want him to. We love that ability, and we saw that with the DJ Moore touchdown. But we also want him to take the easy checkdowns and the easy throws. But I think you're starting to see him take those as he goes. It's not going to be something that happens overnight, but also that's his superpower too. So how do you manage that? And I think that's what Ben Johnson's job and those offensive coaches' job is. And I think they're doing a really good job, because you're starting to see it really mesh together. And I know I don't want to jump into off season, but once he gets to that off season, there's going to be a mega jump. I just want this team to keep winning, get to the playoffs, because that experience is invaluable to get that experience as a team and for a young quarterback. And then we can continue to build him, who I think, people say he's going to be a good quarterback. I think he's on his way to being a really elite quarterback in this system. I think the sky's the limit when it comes to Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams' relationship, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a start of a journey, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think the way that this whole NFC North has shifted, it's going to be competitive for the next few years, and I'm all about it. So I started it off on the show where I talked about Kansas City. It's horrible. I mean, Patrick Mahomes out for the season with a torn ACL. This offensive line is banged up. And to me personally, look, I know it's got to be depressing in Kansas City, but don't bury your head in the sand and think it's just over. And I mean, 9 years of dominance. You won the divisions. You've won Super Bowls. You've gone to so many championships over the years. And I think a lot of it is, and I said this respectfully, is I think Kansas City was spoiled with Patrick Mahomes because we know what he is. And on top of that, it kind of took your eye off of the run game needs to be adjusted. The offensive line, after they lost Joe Thuney to Chicago, like they needed to reshape this thing. And they had to put a lot of faith and trust in a rookie. So for Kansas City, I feel like all is not lost with them. I think all it is that it's a little crumble, but that doesn't mean they're going to be down and on the ground for very long. When you think about Kansas City, like, is this more of reboot or rebuild for Kansas City? Because I feel like you got to make some moves. Guys got to be honest with some of these guys getting up in age. And then eventually, because you got to think that's really impressive for a GM to draft at the very bottom and yet still be that relevant. That's difficult for anybody. So what do you think? I think it might be rebuild mode, respectfully, only just because the competition in itself is getting tougher by the minute.
Yeah, that's going to be a really big offseason for Kansas City, right? They got their salary cap issues. So it's going to be one of those things. Could it be a little bit of both? Could it be what does that look like? What is a little bit of both? I think you try to start sustaining some of that. Like we'll have to take a look. Are you going to get a retirement from a Travis Kelce? That's yet to remain seen. Or is this a year where, okay, we're not making the playoffs, we start shutting, because when you go to so many championships, so many Super Bowls, so many AFC championship games, those are deep seasons, those are deep runs. Maybe you start looking like, hey, this might be a blessing in disguise where we can get some rest. We can get somebody, not too many of those guys have a lot of years left, but maybe you muster out another year because you have a really good restful off season. And maybe you start shutting some of these guys down with the last few games to allow them to kind of start, get a jump start on that all-season recovery, get ready for next year. Obviously, the big thing is going to be, with a late season ACL injury, what does that look like? I know nowadays in sports medicine, guys jump back very quickly. So,
right.
You could see Mahomes easily ready for the first game. And his work ethic is unbelievable, and he has the money and the work ethic. So, but it's going to be something they're going to have to look at. That salary cap. Obviously, they're going to have to rebuild that offensive line. Just a little, one thing I've learned. One of my my roommates from college. Right now, he's he's an agent, and his client is Damian Pierce, who's on their practice squad. I don't know if he got elevated or not, but one thing he did mention and was like, all those running backs, from what his perspective is and why Damian Pierce chose to go there and sign with him when he had a lot of suitors, they were told like they're going to let a lot of those guys go. I'm under assumption, my buddy's under assumption that a lot of those running backs are not getting signed. So you may see a total rebuild like you were talking about, where they let a lot of guys go and try to rebuild this thing and be creative with, trades and building up, getting some draft capital. It will be interesting because that Kansas City team, you can't count them out of what they're going to possibly do. They're a smart organization. They've been doing it for years. They kept things successful, even with a high salary of Patrick Mahomes. I think they're not done yet. And I think you can see Kansas City do some interesting things in this offseason to get right back in the mix of things.
So the up and coming matchup. So Green Bay is obviously coming off of a loss to Denver. And, look, I saw in the beginning is they kind of poked the bear a little bit, and with the whole Rashawn Gary and the tripping stuff, they kind of poked the bear a bit. But to me, Green Bay without Micah Parsons is going to be tough to instill pressures because, Rashawn Gary and Quay Walker and a couple of, they're going to have to step themselves up. And we know that the secondary might be a little bit challenging. But what I've noticed is, and especially with this matchup and what Chicago, that was a great game the first time around. And so I'm excited about the second time. But I think with Green Bay, it's going to be a lot tougher because now it feels like Caleb will have a little more of a cleaner pocket. He won't have much of that Micah Parsons hurrying pass rush type of deal to where he could just be comfortable in it. What do you see with this with Green Bay? Because I know that's got to be tough for them. And look, Jordan Love, I've noticed that once he throws a pick and what he does is he has the ability to overcome that adversity. So I feel like this second round might be pretty challenging, but yet more exciting than what the first gave us.
Yeah, and this is going to sound a little crazy, but this is not crazy. The impact that Micah Parsons had in that first game, even though he had 0 sacks, was more impactful than what Myles Garrett did yesterday with a sack and a half.
That's right.
And when I'm going to tell you, because Michael Parsons was moving all around that line against the Bears in the first half. Now, the Bears did a great job neutralizing them through game plan, through scheme, and running the ball. But in that first half, Michael Parsons was lining up all over the place, and he was just freeing up guys, and he was just getting penetration. One in particular where Caleb took a really big hit in that first half of that game was Michael Parsons' stand-up 3 technique over Jonah Jackson. He comes down, and he was lining up on Jonah Jackson and giving him a lot of problems, just in general on just a normal pass rush. But on this play, he came down and he picked Darnell Wright, which allowed their DN, I believe it was number 55, to loop in. Caleb steps in the pocket and gets a really big hit for a sack. And he was just doing all those things, like where is he lined up? He's over here, he's over there. And he had 0 sacks, but he had an impact on the rest of that group that allowed them to play free. He's just one of those type of players. When you think about guys, I play with Urlacher, their presence and what they can bring just elevates everybody else. Myles Garrett has that same effect, but it's just, the way the Bears handled him, even though he had a sack and a half, he was, where he was going to line up at, and that made it easy. He's wide 9, and run away from him, send blockers this way. Micah Parsons does so much for that Green Bay team. And I almost take it as almost like his impact was kind of when the Bears signed Khalil Mack in 2018, That immediate impact and how he just took that defense and they raised their game up and they had that really terrific season. So that's going to really hurt that team. But a lot of guys are going to have to step up, which is a really good team speed that they possess is on that Green Bay defense. But that Michael Parsons injury definitely hurts them big time, but great for the Chicago Bears when you think about trying to scheme up and, not have to worry about where he's at.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because I feel like this league has taken quite a shift. I feel like when we talk about playoff teams and when we talk about potential Super Bowl winner, I almost feel that it's going to be a team in the NFC. I just don't know who. Yeah. We know the Rams played well. Who knows with as far as their star receivers, that's going to be a question mark. Seattle definitely plays in the trenches, tough and gritty. Yeah. And you look at the AFC, it's a complete shift. We may end up seeing the playoff without potentially Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes. You're going to have Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert. Like, is this, I feel like we've seen this before in past history, but how exciting does this gotta be though? Because I feel like for a football fan in general, like myself, watching and evaluating this, you got to be pumped and amped. Whereas for team fans, it might feel a little different. And I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like, if you think about that, like, I just think it's going to be an interesting playoff by the time it starts.
This might be gearing up for one of the most exciting postseasons. I mean, we're already feeling it, right? All the playoff scenarios. One of my buddies was just panicking last week when Green Bay, Bears lost to Green Bay and the Bears jumped down to 7. And I'm like, dude, be okay. It's okay. Because the parity, and the one thing I said, the parity in NFL is crazy this year. I said this several weeks ago. So when the Bears win and Green Bay loses, and here comes the Bears jumping up to 2nd, and that's going to be the case in the next 3 weeks, that everything's going to be jumping all over the place. And then when you get to the playoffs, I think it's just it's so much parity. You're used to Kansas City just being there at the top of the helm. And you got Philadelphia, the defending champs. It looks like they're going to get in. They may, we'll see how they finish up the last three weeks. But, at one point you were counting out Buffalo. They looked like they were done for. And then here they come. Here comes Josh Allen and his heroics. You got New England. They needed to come. Maybe they needed to come back down to earth with a loss. Denver, sneakingly, everybody says this is not real. Kind of similar to the Bears in a sense where this is not real. They're not beating anybody, but here they go. They continue to win, and they took down a really good Green Bay team. So you have to take them for real. So, and it's all without some superstars of Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, and without Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be crazy. And I always say, if the Bears, we have some work to do. I think we need to get that 11th win, as far as securing our playoff spot. It's always nice to see the Chicago Bears in the mix. It's just one of those. It's one of those teams that when they're in, you feel good. But like, it's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be in, and it's just going to be that year. It's like, who's going to take it? It's going to be somebody fresh, perhaps, because you still got Philadelphia that will be in there. But it's gearing up for what might be one of the most exciting. I mean, this last weekend was crazy. It's going to gear up to be one of the most exciting 3 weeks that's just going to head. I mean, we're in playoff football mode right now for a lot of teams.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, I think, with the way that the AFC is, I feel like it's wide open, but there are many surprises. I feel like Jacksonville and Houston, nobody's talked so much about them. Oh, yeah, they've played such good football, but should be interesting. By the way, Monday Night Football game tonight, who we talking, Dolphins or Steelers? Because I feel like Dolphins, since they fired Chris Greer, they've been on a completely different level, but I still feel like they definitely are just one, if not a couple pieces there to where that'll get them back into shape.
Yeah. I mean, like, what was it? So, several weeks ago, you were looking at Mike McDaniels on his way out, and the way they have played disrespectfully, you think it might, are they going to stick with Mike McDaniels and keep this thing going and answer some piece, add some pieces there to get this thing going. And sometimes, the grass is not always green on the other side. Maybe Mike McDaniels has some learning and some maturing to do as a play caller, as a coach, that you stick with a guy like that, and especially when he's showing it and got this team playing better. Pittsburgh is that tricky team right now. You just don't know what you're going to get week to week from them. And where is it at tonight?
It's in Pittsburgh tonight.
Ooh, weather. Weather. I mean, that would probably push me towards the Steelers because of the weather, and some of the adversity and the talking that's going behind the scenes. And Mike Tomlin's name is always, and I mean, he's just a great coach that takes advantage of just the news clippings and Aaron Rodgers. So I feel this is going to be a really good game. It's going to be closer than what I expect, but I think the weather could be the tipping edge that would have me edging out. And what's the spread on that one?
I think this one, the spread right now is on Pittsburgh -3.
Ooh.
So, and of course, the over-under, it's 42.5. So I feel like it could be pretty gritty at the end.
Yes, I think it's just I just don't see a high scoring one. You know what I mean? I think it's
Neither
going
do
to
I,
be
yeah.
that. And if you're Pittsburgh, I'm running the ball, and please give it to Warren because he's on my fantasy team. So even though I got my game squared up, I would like to see him get going, and that make me feel good going into the playoffs. But
Yeah.
I just think Pittsburgh is one of those teams. I mean, you said Jacksonville, but it's just, you know, I think you get Pittsburgh in there, Aaron Rodgers, what could be his last ride, you know? So I will pull for Pittsburgh. I think they're going to do it. And I would like to see Pittsburgh get in there because then that just adds another element into the playoff picture that you got the old man Rodgers maybe going for his last hurrah.
Yeah, no, totally agree, man. This should be an interesting game, though, tonight. Appreciate you for coming on by, Steve. Happy holidays to you and your family, my friend. It's a great one. I mean, here in Denver, we've only had one snowstorm, and so far it's been sunny. It's been like 60. So, but I'll take it. But
good for you guys. It's freezing here, so you obviously saw the game on Sunday. So, I appreciate you having me on. I definitely got to have you come on my show. I do my show tonight on Monday nights, the Bear Down with Big Steve. So definitely we'll have to collab and get you on, man. Appreciate
Hey, absolutely, man. Me. I'd love to collaborate with all those Chicago people. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, they're crazy. TTNL is my network I'm on, and they are crazy guys. So I think they would definitely like your personality and your insight.
Oh, I greatly appreciate it, man. Happy holidays to you, and we'll definitely see you soon.
All right, take care.
Take care. Yeah, I think, Chicago, they've really turned a lot of great things around. And it's just exciting to see, the state of the NFL shape the way that it does. And look, I'm all here for great football, like fun football. So great stuff. It's really shifted up around. All right, let's get to news.
And now, here we go. Hey, everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
All right, so as we've said, two major injuries, which we've mentioned about Patrick Mahomes. And so far, Micah Parsons had an MRI that had confirmed it is a torn ACL and his season is officially over. Parsons' knee buckled without contact while he was chasing quarterback Bo Nix in the third quarter after a 34-26 loss in Denver. This is the first major injury of Parsons' NFL career. He missed 4 games last season because of an ankle injury, but otherwise has only missed one other regular season game since he entered the NFL in 21. And he ended up putting up a post up from here and said, "I may be sidelined, but I'm not defeated. This injury is my greatest test, a moment God allowed to strengthen my testimony. I believe he walks with me through this storm and chose me for this fight because he knew my heart could carry it. I'm deeply grateful to the Packers." So, yeah, it's hard. I feel like this Chicago-Green Bay matchup is going to be tough. I think it'll be one for the ages. But I certainly do believe that without Micah Parsons, it's not going to be much of pass rushes as much. I do feel that they've got something there with them. And I think Green Bay, they can stand a fight, but I think Chicago might end up having a little bit more of the upper hand at the end of the day. Some news in Washington, D.C., and kind of the news that we all have been waiting to hear is the Washington Commanders have officially announced that quarterback Jaden Daniels is going to be shut down for the remainder of the season. And I agree with it wholeheartedly. There's nothing truthfully to play for other than playoff implications. So which means Marcus Mariota is going to end up quarterbacking for the rest of the season. And listen, you got to sit your franchise quarterback, and that is hard. So look, the Washington Commanders, the minute that, last year they got to the NFC Championship and they got eliminated. And one of the biggest things is Jaden Daniels is he's such a remarkable quarterback that I know he is going to be the future for this Washington team. But they got to get an O-line. They got to get a couple of some good playmakers, because I think Zach Ertz may end up retiring after that torn ACL. But it's tough to think about this. And Washington, I think you put this up and into the back burner. I mean, you and the Giants, it's going to be difficult. But I feel Washington, if they could step themselves up and bounce back, I think they'll be in good shape. Finally, some news here as the Indianapolis Colts, well, they just welcomed back 44-year-old Phillip Rivers as their quarterback, that they have decided that they are going to remain with him as quarterback one for next Monday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers. So Phillip Rivers' experiment is not over, and he didn't even have that bad of a day. As a matter of fact, he completed 18 of 27 passes for 120 passing yards against the Seattle Seahawks. And so Shane Steichen confirmed that he will remain the starting quarterback for the Colts in Week 16 against the Niners. And Phillip Rivers was just amped up to be back up and onto the field. Him being off for that long, obviously there was some unknown, as Steichen reported, but for him to go out there and do what he did to put us in a position to win in a hostile environment after that long of a layoff was pretty impressive. Getting us into the right plays, managing the game. I thought he was phenomenal in that regard on the sidelines. His leadership, all those things that he brings to our team will be beneficial for all of us. So there's a lot of love and trust with Shane Steichen. Not surprised. I mean, the two of them go way, way back. And so with Phillip Rivers up and into the helm for the Indianapolis Colts, I'm for it. You know, to me personally, he did not look that terrible at all. It seemed like there was still some zip. There was still some accuracy up there. And I think for the next couple stretches, it's going to be interesting to watch these games. And I think Indianapolis, they are playing for that implication more than anything else. Between them, between Buffalo, the Chargers, multiple teams right now are fighting for all of that. And I feel like we may have one team with a winning record in the AFC that may potentially miss the playoffs. But again, it's anybody's matchup at the end of the day. So the AFC is cooking, and there's only about 3 weeks left, so we'll see what happens. All right, there was the news.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
So, just over the weekend, and I'm really happy for a few reasons, okay? I really am happy that Fernando Mendoza ended up winning the Heisman Trophy representing for Indiana, a basketball program that has now reached its highest potential in its football program the minute Curt Cignetti came from James Madison to here. And so people are asking, is Fernando Mendoza really all that as far as a draft prospect? I look at it this way, and you got to remember, this is the 4th year in a row in college football that we have had a transfer win the Heisman. Because originally, like, you got to remember, Jaden Daniels came from Arizona State and then transferred to LSU and wins a Heisman with Brian Kelly. And Brian Kelly got fired. Then you get Fernando Mendoza going from Cal Berk to Indiana, and a complete shift, which I wasn't even sure if that was going to be that possible. I really didn't. I thought, honestly, Indiana, I wasn't even sure what they were going to look like. The Big Ten is competitive. And so after that, I was really impressed with the way that they handled it. And at the same time, the biggest thing is that Curt Cignetti has built together a great program and culture. This is why they extended him for 8 years, because they don't want to lose that. Okay, you don't want to lose that to a Penn State, an LSU, an Ole Miss. You don't want to lose that. That's why Indiana was like, we need to lock up Curt Cignetti right now. And they did. And Indiana now is one of the best 4 teams in the country, along with Ohio State and other teams as well. But again, the college football landscape has been changing, and it's been changing drastically and very fast. But I felt like Fernando Mendoza put up a heck of a year. And with his draft implications and stocks, he is going to be a quarterback to really look out for most teams. Me personally, the way that I would prefer this, because here's the thing. What's going to happen to Matt Stafford in the LA Rams? There was lots of talks about that, about how Stafford, he may retire, and they're striving to get a Super Bowl championship with him, which is not that easy. And so I think that if Matt Stafford retires, that one spot could be traded from the 9, and the Rams could get their franchise quarterback, and they'll completely be a juggernaut for the next few years. The Raiders, here's my problem with this. The Raiders, right now, they have a quarterback right now in Geno Smith, and I know he's not great. But here's the other thing you also have to take away is you have 2 offensive linemen, Jackson Powers-Johnson and Colton Miller, and the rest of it you need to reshape. I just don't know if quarterback is really into the sites that they should be in, even though I still think they should get a veteran in this building. They need consistency. They need a culture. They need something. And it's not been working out for the last few years. It's been kind of wonky. The Jets, in my opinion, nobody wants to do business with the Jets, but listen to me. They just fired their defensive coordinator, Steve Wilks. But I think they may end up getting another head coach because I just don't think Aaron Glenn, truthfully, really fits the role. Unfair to say still, but I just don't think he fits the role. I think he's more of a coordinator than anything else. And then the other thing is, look at the roster. Yes, they got rid of Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, but they have Jermaine Johnson. They've got Garrett Wilson. They have Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. Like, my big thing is I think that if you get Fernando Mendoza in the building in New York, you got an offensive line you're going to have to pay. Elijah Vera Tucker, Armand Membo, and also Alofa Shanu, who I really, really like. So they got talent up here. They got some guys. Don't get confused, and don't let that blind you of what the ownership is. But they definitely would love to have a culture change built. Because look, to be honest with you, Justin Fields, it's not cutting it for me. Yes, he's athletic. He can run. Yes, he could throw a lot of these accurate, 15 yards. But sometimes you got to have the capability and confidence to stretch the field. Sometimes he does it, sometimes he does. And that's just the reality of Justin Fields. You need something new in this building. But I felt like Fernando Mendoza had a heck of a year. Congrats to him winning the Heisman. I think this was right. But now you got to go into the college football playoff. And so that's the other thing that people are also excited about that. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, couple minutes left to talk about. We got the Monday night football game between Miami and Pittsburgh. You don't want to end up missing out on that. Be right back here on the Snake Sports Talk Show.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket, and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all sports and entertainment is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Great to have you all in. We had some great interviews. If you didn't get a chance to check them out, David Pendell, former collegiate quarterback. We had some great talks up with him. And then, just earlier on, Big Steve Edwards, former offensive lineman in the NFL. We had some great talk with Chicago. Listen, I love getting a lot of those invites all the time. And really, like, you know, I do, because me, I've been in this for 6 years, and I absolutely love with what I do. As America's Honesty Mind, I'm here to give you honest and clear perspective. And I can be brutally honest, but that's only because I care about, you know, I love great football. I love really good football. You know, I don't ever like bad football, but I will call it out because you want to make it good football. And, you know, I love listening to a lot of these fan bases. I mean, Chicago deserves every bit of this to be hyped up, to be excited. And then, you know, I live here in Denver. Bronco fans. I mean, you feel like that I'm scolding, but I'm being honest with all of you. And I love every single one of these fan bases. And so that's why I love to, at some point, you know, travel to a lot of these fan bases, going to a lot of these tailgates and getting to see a lot of these fans, because it is the fun part of it. I remember when I first went to a Bronco game and everybody all asked about, you know, my brand and my talk show. And everyone absolutely loved it. They asked about the jersey. They're like, where'd you get that from? And then, you're not a fan of any other team, so what are you a fan of? Well, they don't know about my true fandom of the team, but that didn't matter. Everybody was clicked and everybody was they were on it. That's what I love. So I love traveling. I'd love to see a lot of these fan bases, connect with them. I think it's just the beauty behind it, that the fact that we get to do this. So a couple of things that were up and on my mind. I want to talk about, you know, with Buffalo and New England. New England, they were on it in the game, and then unfortunately, they were out of it. And I am just, you know, how much can I really invest in the Buffalo Bills? I love Josh Allen. I can invest in him. But I felt like in that game, I thought it was a great overcoming of adversity for Josh, because they needed something like that. The run game was tearing them apart. The other thing is Drake May, he is a really good quarterback. Let's not mistake it. Josh Allen also shows you why he's a dominant elite quarterback to a lot of his strengths and capabilities. And so Buffalo right now, because listen, I got tonight's game with Miami and Pittsburgh, which probably won't mean anything. But as far as top 10 implications for tomorrow, when I end up releasing the top 10 teams, my big thing is that there are a bunch of teams that are outside looking in. And it's between Buffalo and the Chargers who gets in at 10. Because you got to think, the Chargers went the way in which Buffalo took care of business against New England. The Texans took care of business against the Cardinals. And then the Jags absolutely manhandled and crushed their opponent. So the Chargers, they took down one of the arguably the biggest ferocious beast in the entire AFC. So what do you do from there? The other thing is Buffalo is also playing for not just for playoff implications, but even for just the division itself. They still have a chance. New England, they're a really good football team, and they have definitely turned things around. So that's the one thing is that Buffalo, there are times where I could feel so confident of it in this offense with Josh Allen, and then sometimes the defense can leave me with question marks. But I think a lot of this is just this teeter-totter spring rocker type deal with as far as, just their comfortability, especially with Sean McDermott. Like, many people may not want Sean McDermott fired, or some of them, they definitely do, because they're tired of the inconsistency. They don't want to be left in the unknown. They want to have a clear, consistent presence. And I think Buffalo, they have exactly a lot of that stuff. But it's the consistency which gives me problems. But these last couple of weeks, I felt like they've sprung out of the ground. They have definitely turned around a half. And that's what makes Josh Allen that incredible. So I love with what I've seen. But that is the biggest question mark more than anything else. And so I love every bit of it. And Josh Allen is just ridiculous. And by the way, congrats to Josh Allen and his wife, Haley Steinfeld. They're expecting a newborn. Absolutely love it. I'm all for it. It's all positivity here. Positive Jake in the house. That's what I'm about. Yeah. Loved it. Loved every bit of it today. 2 great interviews. Can't go wrong with it. It's a great day, folks. Absolutely love it. Well, it's going to be an even better day, only because tomorrow we got some great stuff along your way. Former NFL wide receiver Kevin Dyson is also going to be joining us here up and onto the program. And also, I know a lot of you all miss Chase, and we're going to be having him back here soon. But we're also going to introduce another fun co-host up and onto the show as well. So don't go anywhere up from there. Exciting news in the Snake Sports Talk Show. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Appreciate David Pindell and Steve Edwards for coming up and onto the show. Appreciate all of you guys. Happy holidays, and we'll see you tomorrow.